Joining me now on the Knicks Film School Podcast, he is the CEO of Noah Basketball, which is something we are going to talk a lot about today because it is the gold standard for shot tracking technology. All you have to do is look at the 28, I believe, NBA teams that currently use Noah Basketball, as well as countless college teams and other teams, indeed, across the world. I'm really excited to get into this with their CEO, John Carter. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Jonathan. Really appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, well, so Andrew, periodically, because he's the best, reaches out to me with, opportunities for, interviews that I maybe wouldn't normally think of or people that I might not know about. And so I read the little blurb from the Wall Street Journal, and I'm like, wow. And my first thought was, why don't I know the name Noah Basketball already? And my obvious conclusion was that I'm just very ignorant. We're going to get to that. But why don't we just start with the basics? I didn't know who you were, and I'm going to assume a fair bit of our listeners don't maybe know a lot about Noah Basketball. So why don't you give us the quick pitch for what you guys do? Sure.
So, the reason you and many others don't know about Noah is we've been focused on the very top part of the market. And so if you weren't working at a elite basketball program, WNBA, NBA, men's or women's, college basketball, you would not have a reason to really learn a great deal about us. But what we do is we track the basketball, and from the basketball, we can know and understand what a player needs to do to improve their shooting. So we measure three really important critical metrics at the rim. We measure the entry angle or the arc of the shot. A lot about that we can talk about. We could spend our entire time about that because
I want to get into it.
There's a lot of things that people thought were correct that turned out to not be correct. And we also measure the left-right position. So we do that dynamically with every shot so we can see how well a player shoots the ball straight. And then we measure how deep a player shoots in the basket. We have found that to be the biggest cardinal sin in shooting is, it's just hitting the front of the rim all the time. It's amazing how often that happens. And the lower the level, the bigger the problem as far as you get down to high school, middle school, et cetera. So we have a really advanced product that the NBA and WNBA teams and all of these elite colleges have. And we call it our Pro System. And that one, we actually have facial recognition. We do all types of, shot type identification. We just add more context to the shot. And so, a player can get up, doesn't have to be a massive number of shots, can get up a good number of shots. And we can see very quickly the type training that player would benefit from the most. And so that's the quick elevator pitch.
So I want to get into the nitty gritty of a lot of what you just said, but I kind of want to start at the beginning because as someone who does not have a background in media and kind of started this podcast from the ground up and just did so by kind of sheer force of will, I'm fascinated in any story that involves someone who gets told no a lot. And reading your backstory, it seemed that it's not like you developed this technology or what became this technology and people were chomping at the bit to get this thing in their program or their system or whatever. So can you just kind of go back to the beginning and tell us about a little bit about your journey here?
Oh yeah. It was, back when, and to say I started, kind of at the lowest level, I have done, hundreds and hundreds of free high school shooting clinics, just trying to get the word out, trying to learn. I mean, every little podunk town you can think of, I've been there doing.
I love podunk towns. They have great diners.
Same here. I grew up in a podunk town. So anyway, but we, and then I would, wedge my way in, find some coach that knows some coach that knows some coach, and I would get my way in to do a demo at a college or at an NBA or, team. And gosh, early on, the reception was so bad. There just was no, keep in mind, this is 20 years ago. This is pre-cloud. This is iPhones, and people having such advanced tech in their pocket type thing. And if I had a nickel for every time a coach told me, hey, look, this stuff seems okay, but you can't teach a player to shoot a basketball with a computer. That was the common thing I would hear back then.
I want to stop you for a sec because I was curious as I was reading the backstory. was most of the resistance coming from coaches who were just kind of coaches and players? Okay,
and players at the elite level anyway. At the NBA level, those guys wanted nothing to do with tech, and the coaches. The older the coaches, the more resistant he or she might be toward Noah and toward tech in general.
Interesting. And was there? And just to, put a fine point on it, like, again, there's a story where you got in with like an assistant who was willing to listen to you, and he brought it to his head coach, and the head coach wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. And now you have Nick Nurse, the coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, on your board of Noah basketball. So talk about coming a long way. What was there a moment or something that happened where you saw like a switch flip to more acceptance, or was it just more gradual over the course?
Yeah, no, we had a little bit of a moment in 2017. So you guys have probably heard of the Sloan Sports Conference. It's put on by MIT, one of the largest, maybe the largest sports analytics conference in the world. And we showed up there. We'd never been there. We'd never participated in any way, and we got.
How'd you get in, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, we actually entered some competition. So we entered the research competition.
That's awesome.
They had a startup competition, and even though we had been around for a while, we were still a really small company, so we were able to enter the startup competition, and so we won both. So we won the startup competition, we won the research poster competition, and out of nowhere, we had NBA teams all over us.
That's awesome.
So it really. What I would say is, and this sounds arrogant and I don't mean it to be, our ideas were a little before their time. They were before their time, before coaches and players were ready to accept it. And they were also before our time in that the technology to really do it well was not available. And so, when we got to that 16, 17 time frame, the tech, we use the same type tech that's used in robotics and driverless cars and things like that. We track a basketball and people in 3D space. And so that tech just wasn't very good in the early days. And so it's a combination of things, the Moneyball movie, all of the move toward analytics, the game of basketball becoming so much about shooting. Then you had the tech was just getting better and better and easier and cheaper. And I think the iPhone played a role in it, and just phones in general, because now players are growing up with tech and they're comfortable. And you had a little bit of a change of the guard in coaches, and just all of those things came together. And then out of nowhere, we're relevant, these teams.
It makes me think of two things. One, because I'm a movie guy, like James Cameron. James Cameron had the idea for the Avatar stuff like decades ago, but it wasn't until it got to a certain point. He's like, now I could film this. And then the other part of it, you mentioned how the game has changed. Like, think about how long the 3-point line existed, and people, we're not talking bad like Larry Bird, arguably the greatest shooter of all time. He wasn't taking a lot of threes because nobody thought like to do it, and yet it's like 3 is more than 2. You just got to step back a few feet. And so it doesn't shock me in the slightest that there was resistance to this. So once you started to get teams on board, were you able to keep track from your vantage point about how teams were utilizing the technology?
Yeah, in the early days, the first number of teams, 10 plus NBA teams, I was the sales rep, I was the technical guy, I was the shooting guy,
you were everything.
Whatever. I did everything. And so I got to know a lot of really good guys, and got to work with a lot of players, a lot of player development guys and all that stuff. And so we had some success with players early on, and it just spread, really quickly. There's the stuff that we do, there's a lot of things in shooting that are opinion based. The stuff that we do is not opinion based. It is just absolutely, we have collected shots on, I think our website says 700 million basketball shots. We're actually over 1 billion. We have a partner, a training facility partner that's not in that total, but we've got so much data.
You should do like McDonald's does, like over.
Yeah, exactly.
99 billion served or whatever.
Exactly. We need to get a big sign out here. But yeah, just, it compounded. And so the stuff like just to give you a couple things, for example.
Yeah, please.
everybody, how many times have you been in the gym and you working with somebody or see somebody working with somebody and they're doing some kind of drill where they want to swish every shot?
Yeah.
We all did that.
That's the goal, right?
That's bad teaching today. It's not really what's, the other thing is the higher the arc, the better. If I shoot the ball high, it's going to come in steep. It's going to be more ball around, more space around the ball. It's going to score more. It's just not true in either case.
How did you, this may be a silly question, how did you arrive at those conclusions?
Well, we did some math early on. One of our guys very early on, a brilliant guy, literally a rocket scientist from NASA. He helped us do a lot of different things. The guy that's our chairman was the original founder. He's a former physics teacher. Myself, I'm an engineer. So we just did a lot of math work. And then as we started going around, I would always ask teams and say, gosh, try to bring me your best shooter. Because they would always prove everything that they were my best salespeople, because they always shot with an arc in the mid 40s. They generally always shot the ball deep in the basket, and they shot the ball really straight. And then I would say, and try to bring me a couple of your best shooters and a couple of your worst shooters. And the worst shooters would also confirm everything. They would be inconsistent. They would shoot too high. They would shoot flat, all of the above. And so, but what we found, and you can see some charts on our website, the players that shoot too high, it's actually just as bad as shooting too flat. It's just this perfect curve where it tops in the mid 40s at 45. And when you shoot flatter than that, the percentage just steadily goes down. And we shoot above that, it steadily goes down. And so what we found is the loss of control that takes place, just the physics of the trajectory, more than offsets the gain in space by shooting it steeper. And we also found that it's such a huge, it decreases a player's range, something terrible, especially with younger players or female players. If they're shooting 17, 18 feet and shooting 53 degrees, they get it to 45, suddenly they can shoot 25 feet shots and do it well. So there's just a lot of things in there. And, and what we found is, number one, get the ball in the mid 40s and build consistency,
That's more important than the back rim part. And then I'm already forgetting, what was the third part?
The left, right.
The left, right. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. So it depends on the player, what they need to work on the most. But certainly you got to shoot the ball straight for it to have a chance, so that's an important piece. That's a harder one to change. I always say that's a combination of, this is not someone I've heard from, someone, just my own. I feel like shooting it straight is a combination of mechanics and talent. I've seen a lot of players that have perfect mechanics that struggle shooting the ball straight. And I've seen a lot of players that have really poor mechanics that somehow can just shoot the ball straight over and over and over. And so, it depends, but that one's a little bit tougher. The arc and depth, we can fix that. We can absolutely fix that. And so the arc was a big deal. That was that really surprised a lot of people. It was really hard early on to convince someone that grew up like me, going to Don Meyer basketball camps where we were just shooting the ball to the ceiling, the higher the better, and all of those things. It was really tough. So we had to actually build some really good presentations, some really good slides that would explain it and show it. And then we'd get players to go out and shoot. And they would actually, when a player had a 55-degree arc, which is not that uncommon, they would have this spray at the rim. And then the player that was in the mid-40s would be like this, as far as the spray effect at the rim. And so that's when a lot of coaches started saying, wow, that's okay. I'm with you now.
I'm wondering, have you had players who were, by the numbers, maybe not elite shooters, but very, very good shooters who were clearly off it? Let's just say in terms of the arc, they were maybe in the mid 50s that used the technology, saw that they heard what you were saying. They're like, no, you're supposed to be here. And they're like, yeah, but I'm whatever, a 30.
Yeah, this is what I like. This is me. I've heard that a lot. This is me.
Do they change? Do they resist? What happens there?
What I would say is early on, there was a lot of resistance. Resistance to buying the product, resistance to using the product, just all the above. But that resistance today is all but gone.
Really?
we just don't get a lot of resistance on those things today. And that's one of the reasons we've grown as much as we have. And, it's just, we were at an NBA player's home 2 weeks ago where we just installed our stuff. And he was telling us how they use it at their team. I won't call him out, but he's like, no, nobody really puts up a big fight for, everybody understands this is where you need to be. This is where all the data, the physics, everything lines up in your favor. And so I can't tell you every single player in the NBA shooting 45,
of course,
but they generally all are between 43 and 47. They're very close. There's always a few outliers, but there's not many of them left.
Are you allowed to compile and keep all of the data that gets generated by the players that use this technology?
We can't really. We do a lot of that for the teams. That's our customer, of course, and it's their data. We do whatever they ask us to do. What we can do is we can look at the entire data set that includes college players, NBA players, etc., and we glean insights from that data that we share back with the teams. And so if they're a part of the syndicate or whatever you want to call it, they get, and we also can do percentile rankings and things like that for them, so that they see kind of where players stack up. And so it really, the reporting, all the other things that we do, we've made it so simple.
I'm just wondering, like, are you like, is there a data, some data set out there that kind of says like, okay, this is by our technology at least, this is the best shooter in the NBA, or these guys are the top 5 shooters in the NBA, or this is the best shooting team in the NBA. And like, who know, like if that information is out there, which I imagine it is somewhere, like who knows that, because is there like a rush to be like, oh, well, if they're at the top, then what are they doing versus like, well, we're doing.
Yeah, there's certainly the NBA stats that's available for the world to see. No one has all the other data you're talking about but us.
Interesting.
And we have
that's
all
valuable.
Yeah. So we have all the practice gym data, which is, but obviously it's super secure in what we do with that. But the whole thing is about helping the teams.
Yeah, of course.
And so we use that data to go back and provide them insights on individual players and whatever. I mean, for example, in the NCAA tournament this year, literally the week of the Final Four, all of those teams are NOAA customers. And
all 4.
Yeah. And I think it was 13 out of 16. And so, we're literally taking calls from those guys the week of the Final Four as they're fine tuning, looking at particular players.
So that's what I think probably most curious about, because I've never played any sport to any degree of seriousness, but I could imagine how I would be if I, was attempting to play basketball professionally and I had access to this technology. I would want, after every single shot, to go over and be like, okay, what was the angle on that? All right, what was the angle on that one? I would guess that that's not how the players are going about this. What is a practice session using your
most of the elite teams, we'll talk about them for a second. So they have something, we have this big, we call it splash boards. And so the splash, 45 degrees is perfect. 11 inches deep in the basket, which is 2 inches past center, is perfect. And then dead straight. And these players love, every time you get something within a certain range of the 45-11-0, you get a cha-ching.
Really?
Which is, so the system will talk to you. You can say, well, I want the feedback on arc, or I want the feedback on left, right. But the cha-ching is always, it's on. And so if they get one close to being perfect, they're going to get that cha-ching. And it's crazy, even at the NBA level, how much, guys love the cha-ching, and WNBA players, they love that. And so generally they walk in, they don't have to do anything. We're using facial recognition to tag all the shots to the right player. But they'll reset the splash board. They'll reset it before they start. And then, if they go get up 100 shots, a couple hundred shots, they'll walk over the splash board. They'll look and see. We tell them what percentage of their shots were in the arc splash zone, what percentage was in the depth splash zone and the left-right splash zone. And then they'll go back and work on that. And so it just makes it really simple. Everything's on a big, we have, you probably saw the Raptors. They have this huge LED screen that goes the full length of the court, and they have the splash boards on that.
Wow.
And we have some teams that have other LED. Seems like everybody's putting in LED screens these days. But yeah, and some people just do a simple, just have a TV on the wall. But yeah, it's really straightforward and simple. They can get the feedback. We've got some new stuff now where you can actually, I can take my earbuds and put them in. I can get listen to music, and I can have the NOAA feedback coming in, while I'm doing my workout.
Oh, wow. Do you, so I know, like we were talking about the technology before, there's a cost element to this. Like immediately when you talked about, the 13 of 16 of the Sweet 16 teams had it, I'm wondering like, oh, do those other 3 schools, it's maybe a funding issue or something. I'm wondering, as this tech, as it gets to the point where it maybe becomes even more cost efficient, do you envision this going down to the lower levels of basketball?
Sure. That's been our big focus the last 15 months. So we have a new product we introduced last spring, and I shouldn't say no excuse. There's very little excuses around cost for getting this type tech anymore.
Okay.
People can start with as little as $1,500 for a hoop and then a $1,200 a year data fee. So we're selling middle schools, high schools, home gyms, small colleges, Division II, Division III schools, et cetera. So there's, and everything's built into the app. Nobody really has to do anything. Players just walk in the gym. It's very, very simple.
Okay.
But that's been the focus. So we have a package starting with high schools. They can get started for as little as $2,700 and then $1,200 a year. It's a little more for colleges, but not much more. And then for the teams that are really serious that get into our pro system because they want the more advanced stuff. So it varies, but all of those other teams, I think all of those, maybe 11 of the 13 or something like that, had our pro system. But we work with a ton of mid-majors. There's a bunch of those teams that have our stuff as well. It's not just the big brands, but even though we've captured most of them now.
Do you find that if you're dealing with a younger group, it's easier for them to adjust to utilizing the technology in their practice habits? Yeah,
I think I think if everyone started listening in middle school, it'd be better. I have an old corny joke around here. Man, if everybody just shot the ball a little bit better, the world would be such a better place. It just
as a Knicks fan who had to live through, not the last 5 years has been good, but the 20 years before that, I can say that my world would have been a lot better.
Sure, it would, no question. And so, and it's interesting. I had a phone call with a coach this morning, and she was saying that they're in a situation, kind of a mid-major, that's tough for them to recruit and compete, and within NIL and all the other things. But she's a huge believer. She was an assistant coach at another school that had our stuff, and she's like, the one thing I'm super confident in, if I use NOAA the way we used it at my former school, I'm going to pick up a 3 or 2 a game. That's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I'm going to pick up 3 more free throws a game. And I might pick up a few. So, we primarily shoot threes, but I might pick up a mid-range bucket or 2. So she was just super confident they had done that so consistently. And, do that math, a 3 or 2 a game, 3 to 6 points, a free throw or 2. That's the difference in making the tournament or winning 20 wins versus 12. And so it's real. It makes a huge difference. And there's no question, if you get everybody on your team shooting in the mid-40s, as consistent as their talent and mechanics will let them get there, get the ball deep in the basket so you're not missing short, etc., they're going to make more shots. They're absolutely going to make more shots. And so I do believe the younger you get them in, the better, and we're starting to see that now where we've got some players that are in the NBA that literally had this in high school. And you're going to see more and more of that, which is kind of cool for us.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you mentioned, like Nick Nurse is on your board. Obviously, he's works for the Sixers. Daryl Morey, Sloan Conference. I remember when Morey first got to the Rockets, you want to talk about like a math advantage.
Oh yeah.
There were things that he started doing out of the gate where it was like, they were just, I remember listening to like, Zach Lowe's show and talking about how like based on how they just approached the game and the shots that they utilized, it was like they started every game up, whatever
they started with an advantage.
Yeah. 8-0 or 10-0. And, I would suggest that that's the same sort of thing now. But as we said, 28 out of, first of all, I know you can't say it. I would love to know who the two teams are that don't have this. But like if 28 teams have it, then I almost wonder like, well, okay, what's the next advantage or what's the next thing that is it just going to be people who utilize the existing technology better? Or do you think that there is something else out there on the horizon? No,
we already have the next thing. And we've already built the next thing. So we already have 2 NBA teams that have this. And we have about 3 more we're installing, I think, before training camp. So we have built the world's first fully automated motion capture system for basketball shooting. And so what this means is we will have joint angles throughout the basketball shot. It's fully automated. Motion capture stuff is kind of labor intensive. It's a lot of data. Like ours is a 12 camera system that everything's obviously got to be synced together. And so this is, Jonathan, this is like for someone that's been trying to figure out this shooting puzzle for over 20 years. This is like my most anticipated year.
Really?
Coming up. Absolutely. Because the thing I've always wanted to know, I have opinions about shooting and about mechanics and about how someone should hold the ball and how they should finish and all those things. But that's all I have is opinions. Mm-hmm. And that's what we all have. And so now we're going to not only have all of this ball data where the ball's coming in the rim, we know what the optimal is, everybody's balled in, we're good. But now we're going to start collecting data to have all of the joint angles throughout the basketball shot. And now being able to look at, okay, well, let's look at simply, just name anything, shoulder alignment. Let's look at elbow alignment. Let's look at all of these things and see which one of those things are the most important. Now, keep in mind, somebody could measure that today, but they don't know the end result. Now you can take the NOAA data and say, okay, I only want to see all the shots that missed over 4 inches to the left. What was different? And what are the things that need to be worked on? Like I know a ton of NBA teams that we're talking to, they not only want to know the small handful of things that makes a shooter great, and we all have, again, back in the opinion game of what really makes a great shooter great, but they also want to know what are the 3 or 4 things that will just absolutely keep a player from ever being a great shooter. And those are the things that we are absolutely going to figure out fully. What are the things that are holding players back? What are the things that are keeping them from reaching their full potential? And so think about the player that's just been out there shooting and shooting, and still shoots 28% from 3, and probably could have made a lot more money, could have made a team, could have, you name it. So that's fun for me. I'm excited about that.
I'm just thinking about the implications this could have on like the draft. And again, you're talking about now NOAA technology, not this new technology that you're again just starting to introduce at the NBA level, but if this keeps going the way it seems like it's going, you're going to be able to get NBA teams potentially, right, getting data on a draft prospect going back. I mean, hell, not only through their college time, but maybe even into high school before.
Yeah.
And, how it's like, how many times when you go into a draft, do you see a prospect and you're like, well, they do all the things, but they can't shoot it. And like, how high can we justify drafting this player in a league where unless you're a center, and even that's, kind of changing. If you can't shoot it, you can't stay on the floor. And I'm just thinking again about this new thing that you're introducing. Like, has the player been doing a certain thing? Would you be able to tell the player's been doing this thing wrong their entire life, and maybe they've never tried to change it? And if I was a team and I had access to that technology or that data, how valuable might that be for me? To say nothing of the fact that, let's say, a player has been in the league for a few years
Right.
And, one team has the technology, the other team maybe doesn't, and see like, all right, have they been doing this? What have they been doing? What have they not been doing? I feel like this could change everything.
No, I think it absolutely can and will. So we're excited. Again, I don't say that lightly as far as it being my most anticipated year for someone that's been at this for so long. But it's exciting. We've wanted to know and understand this. So if you kind of think of our strategy, we focus on the rim. The rim's fixed. Let's worry about the data points there, the metrics that are super important, that are actually critical. And now we're working our way back. We're doing facial recognition, automatically identifying players. Now we're doing things like shot type identification, just, again, adding more and more context. So now imagine adding just, a simple thing, as far as elbow angle, throughout this particular series of shots and being able to analyze which ones were different. And, we don't know, as there's, we don't know what we don't know, the saying. For example, there's a lot of different types of shots, but two that come to mind were the Splash Brothers. Steph Curry's got that one motion, sling it, let it fly kind of shot. Obviously, it's, I think he's the GOAT of shooting. Mm. And then you have Klay Thompson, who has the absolute prototype shot of the way you would teach someone to shoot. Everything's just right here. It's smooth and consistent and all of those type things. Well, those are different type shots. We're probably going to find some of the things are very similar when you look at the mechanics of those two shots. And we're probably going to find some things that are a little bit different of the one-piece motion. So we don't know.
I've kept you for a while. I promise I'm going to let you go soon. But like just on that notion of about these, two of the three or four, whatever, greatest shooters of all time being very different. How do you reconcile when someone, like you said, you have your opinions, and I'm sure that like the data is going to show what the data is going to show. How do you reconcile where it's like these two guys very different, but they're both effective? Like, what do you do with that? I don't know if this is too broad a topic, but you get where I'm going at here.
Yeah, no, and I guess I'd have a better answer. I always I say this. I speak at about 15 coaching clinics a year, and I say this almost every clinic. When I have the answers to the test, I'm a pretty smart guy. When I don't have the answers, I'm pretty average. So I don't have the answers yet, Jonathan, as the answer.
But you're hoping to get them.
But I'm hoping I'm absolutely going to get them. I'm not hoping to get them. We're going to get them. And so I do think there will be certain things that will apply to all shooters, as far as, maybe their base, their alignment, their footwork. There's certain things. I mean, as an example, you can't have your shoulders turned one way and your hips turned the other way and expect to shoot a good percentage. But even I know that. Yeah, but there are some people that can, again, using Steph again, that's incredible shooting off balance. But most people can't do that. So what is he doing different there that others are not doing? And so those are just things that are fascinating to me.
I mean, I'm just thinking of like Kevin Martin from, on who is he with before? He was with a few different teams. I remember the James Harden trade. That's where Kevin Martin comes from. But like he had a crazy motion, and a guy that caused me a hell of a lot of heartache many years ago, Reggie Miller.
Yeah, he didn't have a prototype shot. But man, he could fill it up.
So what? Again, you say you're going to find out. I'd love to know what was the important part, about that shooting motion, or what is the important part about Steph's motion or any of these guys' motion? It sounds like for as far as you've already come, and for as much as you've already advanced this field, it sounds like we got a bit of a ways to go still, which is cool and exciting. And I'm always thinking about it from the NBA angle of it. Like, I just wonder how smart teams are going to find ways to turn this into a meaningful advantage for them. And
sure.
I guess we'll find out in the years to come.
No, absolutely. And it's like I said, it's going to be a lot of fun. We are excited about these handful of teams that we'll have this season, and we'll pick up more probably during the season. But I fully expect this will be like the Noah Tech. We kind of swept through the NBA with our tech. Then everybody upgraded to this pro system when we added that. I believe this will be the same way, because I just believe the competitive advantage is just going to be too significant to not have it, for all the things that you mentioned, for it's your own roster, developing your own roster, but also for drafting, for all the above.
This gets talked about a lot in the context of analytics, and I don't know what this I guess this falls under analytics in a way, but even just like training facilities and coaching staffs and things like, or a coach or a front office, like there's no salary cap on any of this stuff. There's obviously a salary cap on what players you get. There's no salary cap on any of this stuff. So if you're a team that has the means, you know, I can't for the life of me think of why you would not want to make the investment. But
and we, you know, and I can tell you just from meeting with so many teams, there's a huge amount of interest. And I think generally there's always a lot of teams that say, well, I think I'd rather wait and see that working first. You know, that happens. But like I said, we got 2 that's already installed. We got 3 more that'll probably be installed here really soon. And, you know, you never expected to get the entire league this year, but we'll hopefully get in that 5 to 10 range. That'll be good for year one. But it's working. This is not, you know, something we think we can get working. It's working. It's working well.
It seems like it is. Last thing, are you at liberty to tell the NBA teams that may not be using this, which are, like you say, 2 teams already have it? Does everybody else know who those 2 teams are?
A good percentage of people do. I can't share it because I think we're doing a press release with one of them.
I figured I wasn't going to ask you directly because I figured you couldn't share it, but I want to know who knows who those. Yeah,
there's a ton of teams that know. You know how the NBA is today. You know, there's so many guys that move from team to team that have friends on this team, and I mean, I think we had 17 or 18 NBA team meetings during summer league, and we have people come to the meetings. Well, I already know that so and so has it. You know, they told me about it. You know,
got it.
I already know this or that. So that's word gets around, and that's great if it comes from them. We don't like to be the one that spreads it, but no, the word's definitely getting around.
Okay. Well, listen, I end every show by asking my guests if there's anything they want to plug or promote. I feel like you did a hell of a job plugging and promoting basketball, but anything else we didn't touch on?
No, I think the biggest thing that we really want to get out there is we want people to get past. I think the perception is that Noah's too expensive for me, for my high school, for my middle school, for whatever. But, you know, that is not the case any longer. Tech has gotten cheaper. The whole process of how we do things has gotten cheaper and easier to do. And so that's the biggest thing I would tell anyone to listen to this is, you know, go to our website, check it out. The Noah backboard product is the new, it's also super easy to install. That was one of the biggest, you know, if an NBA team or college team decides to install our tech, they install the tech. You know, for a high school, it's like, oh my gosh, well, I'm going to have to spend $5,000 on the installation. I can't do it. But now you can do it from a ladder, you know, in 30, 45 minutes. And every clinic I speak at, I just bring one with me and install it and take it down when I leave. I lied. You just made me think of an additional question. Do you have to be a school to get this? Like, if I had a kid who I thought was a gifted shooter that went to a school that didn't have this technology, could I come to you as like a dad and be like, hey, I want to install this in my backyard? Yeah, we have a lot of that. There's no one more motivated than a parent. We have found. And so there's a lot of parents that help fund this. We do have to have an agreement with the school because they have to install it. It's their gym, their facility. Okay. But we make that process pretty simple.
Okay.
But no, we have that. We also, I mean, gosh, we sell, I bet we've got 200 personal gyms that have this new product, just random people around the country that have gyms at their house. So we sell to it's really that the new backboard product it's the same data quality as the NBA product. It just doesn't have the facial recognition. It doesn't have the splash boards. It doesn't have all the automated videos, all the other stuff that we do. It just doesn't have all of those things. But it's a super solid product. I'm telling you, I'm stoked about it. It's what I like to use when we have a half court here at our office. You know, when I come in to get up shots, you know, I love to use the app. I get the feedback. I got the classic rock going. I got the Noah feedback going through my earbuds, and I get mad when I don't get enough cha-chings. So it's fun.
It makes me think of the hair club for men. I'm not only the president. I'm also a subscriber.
That's right. Yeah.
There you go. John, this was great. Really, thank you for taking the time to go into this, because again, this is a world that I was very unfamiliar with, and I feel like this was really, really informative. I would wish you the best of luck, but I don't think you need it, because
I appreciate that. And I really enjoyed being on, Jonathan. And also just, feel free to reach out later, because those answers to the test that I mentioned, they're coming. So I'll be an even better interview in a year. So.
I may do just that. Thank you for coming on, everybody out there. Thanks for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. We'll be back with more fun and games before you know it. And actually, before I go, I should say, John mentioned the website. It is noahbasketball.com, NOAH basketball.com. And I'm sure Andrew will be kind enough to put that link in the description of this episode. We'll be back soon. Till next time, take care.